Welcome back. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will introduce a new bill in Parliament to cancel the value-added tax hike. The new bill is expected to come into play in the next 6 days. Joining us to tell us more about the legal implication of this is Bartho van Tonder from Thomson Wilks Attorneys, and he's a director there. Thank you so much, Bartho, for your time and for joining us this afternoon. Just perhaps explain to us the legal process behind the introduction of the rates and monetary amounts and the amendments of revenue bill and its impact on the proposed VAT hike.
Yes, good afternoon, Katlego. Well, as many might know by now, the process initially starts with the budget announcement that this year took place on the 12th of March, and with it, the fiscal framework is introduced into Parliament, and then it's debated on by the Select and the Finance Committee in Parliament. It's reported on, and it would then be adopted by Parliament, which happened in this case. Usually at the same time, there are what they call money bills that are introduced by the Minister of Finance at the same time. And those are, as you've said, it includes the Rates and Monetary Amounts Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill. And it would also include the Appropriations Bill and the Division of Revenues Bill. So when the Minister announced the VAT increase, which he did with the tabling of the budget on the 12th of March, he indicated that it would come into effect on the 1st of May. That was to push it up from 15% to 15.5%, and he did that in terms of the power that he has in terms of Section 7(4) of the VAT Act. What that section of the VAT Act says is that the Minister can increase the rate or change the rate of the prevailing the VAT rate at the time, which is regulated by Section 7(1) of the VAT rate. And that's what he then did. And he can also indicate when it will come into effect, as it would have done on the 1st of May. And the purpose of the Rates and Monetary Amounts and Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill is really to give effect to that announcement formally through Parliament, because of course Parliament needs to pass the legislation. Even though the Minister's announcement would have effect temporarily until that bill is introduced and then it's formalized through Parliament. Now, of course, what's happened is there was a change of the initial decision to increase the rate from 15% to 15.5% and to keep it at 15%. So what the purpose now is of the new Rates and Monetary Amounts Amendment Bill is that the rate won't increase as it was initially envisaged to be passed by Parliament, and it will effectively stay at 15%. So that's the purpose. Of course, introducing a bill into Parliament and having it be passed by Parliament is something that takes a bit of time.
But like you mentioned, that the Finance Minister has the authority to adjust that VAT rate, but does he have the power to change the VAT rate without the full involvement of Parliament?
Well, yes, and that's what the entire controversy is about, and why the matter was taken by the DA and the EFF to court. It was precisely to challenge the Minister's powers to be able to increase VAT rates without Parliament essentially being involved, because that is what Section 7(4) of the VAT Act allows him to do. So the DA has questioned this, and the EFF have intervened, of course, in that application, and that was argued this week. It was opposed by the Minister, and he indicated that he doesn't believe that there's a problem constitutionally with that power. But the constitutionality question itself is something that will only be determined later in the year. For now, it was a question of halting the increase pending the determination of the constitutionality of that power. And that is a decision that hasn't been made yet by court, and it appears that there are some discussions between the parties potentially to come to some kind of an agreement. But yes, the Minister does have that power in the VAT Act as it stands, and because of that power and the announcement of that increase on the 12th of March, it was due to take effect on the 1st of May. But of course, now there's been an announcement that it won't increase anymore. And there seems to be a little bit of uncertainty as to what the legal effect is of this withdrawal announcement, because, of course, there isn't specific provision in the VAT Act to withdraw an announcement, even though it provides for the power to make an announcement for an increase and the time when it will take effect. So there's some uncertainty, and this is why the bill was introduced. to remove that uncertainty and to ensure that when it does get passed, the rate increase won't take effect. But again, as I say, it would take some time in the ordinary course.
And in terms of the fiscal framework, just how does the dispute over the VAT increase tie with the broader concerns over the revenue that is anticipated to be raised? Could this lead to significant changes in terms of the future budgets and the formulations and the implementations thereof?
Well, the fiscal framework, of course, provides provides the basic guide of how revenue is expected to be raised during the financial year, and also the expenses that is expected to be expended during the financial year. And of course, a critical aspect of raising revenue is taxes. And the power that the minister has under the VAT Act to make such an increase in, for example, the rate of VAT would have an implication on his ability to project what kind of revenue can be expected to be raised, and as such, what would inform the fiscal framework upon which such projections would be based. So it would have an impact going forward, hypothetically, if, for example, the power to increase the rate is declared unconstitutional. Come next year, February, and the introduction of the fiscal framework, then the minister would not necessarily be able to then take into account any decision that he might have been able to make to increase the rates then. So yes, it would have an implication on the preparatory processes for the budget. But the argument, for instance, in court was that there are other countries that don't follow such a process where the minister has this kind of power, and that Parliament should be the one deciding as the representatives of the public how taxes are levied under the principle of no taxation without representation. So in the future, essentially what would need to happen is that Parliament would need to ensure that the relevant revenue planning is done in advance and that's all taken into account when the budget is presented with the fiscal framework.
All right, Bartho, thank you so much for giving us that clarity. That's Bartho van Tonder from the Thomson Wilks Attorneys, as a director there, speaking to us about those VAT implications and the legal implications to those changes.